How does one get banned from making movies? Well, sometimes it takes only one movie to find out. For every film that gets made, there's about 1,000 that don't. Most of those never even see the light of day as pre-production gets cancelled or filming is halted part of the way through. But once in a while, a movie so scandalous, so offensive, so just plain wrong gets made, and then immediately gets banned. And this is the story of one such movie. This is the story of bisexual vampires and eternal lust, the horror film that was too sexy for 1983. Our story begins with producer Bruno Mattei, who had recently moved from Italy to the US to make it big in Hollywood. So far, he wasn't having much luck. He'd been trying to get his foot in the door for years, but without any success until finally an old friend from back home came to the rescue. Lamberto Bava was the son of Mario Bava, a legendary Italian horror director known for works like Black Sunday, Blood and Black Lace, and A Lizard in a Woman's Skin. Lamberto himself would go on to direct many Italian horror films such as Demons, A Bay of Blood, and The Galah, The House by the Cemetery. However, at this point in his career, he was just trying to break into Hollywood, and Bruno thought he could help him do it. The two of them brainstormed ideas for a film that would appeal to American audiences, and they hit upon the concept of bisexual vampires. There was a lot of stigma surrounding homosexuality at the time, especially bisexuals who were seen as being perverted, promiscuous, and immoral. On top of that, vampires were also quite popular at the moment, thanks to the success of The Hunger. The two friends believed that if they could combine these two hot topics, they could come up with the next big thing. Now, although bisexual vampires sounds like a pretty good idea, investors were less than thrilled at first, and understandably so. You don't really hear of vampire flicks being greenlit as is. So naturally, when they heard about this one, which also featured vampires and leather chaps riding motorcycles, they weren't exactly jumping at the opportunity. But Bruno and Lamberto knew that with the right marketing, they could convince people to overlook their initial judgment and make a buck off of this picture. And with that, production began. Shooting took place over a period of 27 days. In April and May of 1982 in Los Angeles and around the Venice area, the cast consisted of some well-known actors of the time such as David Carradine, best known for his role in Kung Fu, George Eastman from the Blues Brothers, and Ree Brown, who starred in several Roger Corman-produced science fiction films. It was directed by an up-and-coming filmmaker named. All this combined with the lurid poster art gave the film the perfect exploitation movie vibe. Now let me tell you, this was not your grandma's vampire flick. This movie pushed boundaries, but let me warn you, it didn't exactly do it tastefully. The film opens with a biker gang led by the oddly named Midnight riding through the desert on their way to a secluded cabin owned by one of the gang members. There, they intend to have a little fun. And by fun, I mean debauchery, orgies, devil worship, and blood drinking. They are, after all, vampires. The group is soon joined by two strangers, a seemingly innocent hitchhiker and a mysterious woman in a wheelchair. Soon the party is in full swing. We see Midnight performing fellatio on a man while another gang member is busy torturing a goat. Later on, we see a gang member approach the woman in the wheelchair, who turns out to be a seductress and a vampire hunter. She seduces the man, then bites him in the neck and drains him of blood. She then turns her attention to the rest of the bikers, one by one, taking them all out. But she isn't successful against Midnight, who actually manages to stab her with a stake. And as she lays dying, she reveals that she was the sister of Dracula. Yep, that Dracula. Apparently he's still around and looking for her. Midnight, feeling guilty for killing her, decides to take a trip to Transylvania to pay his respects. Once there, he meets up with Dracula and they ride off together into the sunset. The end. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Sounds ridiculous. Well, that's because it is. But I haven't even told you the half of it. There is so much more that happens in this movie, and none of it makes any sense whatsoever. There is a subplot involving a reporter who is researching the strange disappearances of young men in the area. He's killed by one of the female bikers after he accidentally stumbles upon their cabin. There's also a part where Dracula and Midnight decide to visit Las Vegas, where they have a pool boy, if you know what I mean. Then there is the fact that the entire movie is set in the 1950s for no apparent reason other than maybe they wanted to capitalize on the whole biker craze that was going on at the time. So with all this in mind, how did this train wreck of a film ever get released? Well, the answer is it didn't. Upon its completion, it was shown to a few select people who gave it the green light for release. However, during the editing process, the MPAA got wind of the film and sent their representative to view the film, and guess what? They hated it. They demanded over 40 minutes of footage be removed before they would even consider giving it a rating. The problem was that by removing said footage, the movie would essentially make no sense. So the filmmakers decided to just not cut anything and fight the MPAA with it. Unfortunately for them, they lost. And although the film was technically completed in 1982, it wouldn't be seen for another 11 years. However, it finally got its official release in 1993 under the title Bisexual Vampires. The problem was that by this time, audiences and even the MPAA had become a lot more lenient. The film was rated X, but almost all the footage that made it seem like an exploitation movie had already been cut. So, all that was left was a nonsensical vampire story with some gratuitous sex scenes thrown in. It bombed at the box office and was panned by critics, and so the legend of the lost masterpiece became cemented in cult film lore. For years, fans clamored for the original cut, but to no avail. Even the director and producers claimed that the missing footage was irretrievably lost. However, in 2016, a fan-made edit of the film featuring some restored scenes was uploaded to YouTube, and although it doesn't include all the deleted footage, it's still a fascinating look at what could have been. And as for the real deal, well, it remains missing to this day, perhaps for the best. If the film was released today, it would probably get a PG-13 rating, and they detoned down all the crazy stuff to make it appealing to a wider audience. So it's possible that we may never see the true vision of this film. The film that was too sexy for 1983. I want to thank our supporters for making these videos possible. Be sure to subscribe for more.